2.5, solving compound inequalities. When you hear the word compound, what do you think of?
Two things.
What, two things combined, right? Like a compound word. That's essentially what compound inequalities are. It's two inequalities that are put together, and we use the words and or the word or to put them together. That's why it's called a compound inequality. Does that make sense? So today we're going to look at solving compound inequalities. So there's the definition right there. A compound inequality is an inequality formed by joining two inequalities with the word and or the word or. Those are the only two words we'll use to put together two inequalities to create a compound inequality. So I'll let you get that definition written down if you want before I start talking about each individual one. Let's talk about and compound inequalities first. It's this left section right here. Okay? The graph of a compound inequality with and is what we call the intersection of the graphs of the inequalities. So it's essentially where the two graphs intersect, where they're the same, where the two graphs are the same. Okay? The graph shows numbers that are solutions of both inequalities. So for a number to be a solution of a compound inequality containing and, it must fit both inequalities. Okay? So let's look at this example down here. Our compound inequality is x is greater than or equal to 2 and x is less than 5. So they went ahead and graphed each of them individually. So x is greater than or equal to 2, closed circle on 2, shaded to the right. Does everyone agree with that? Okay. X is less than 5. Open circle on 5, shaded to the left. Everyone agree with that? Okay. So the graph of this compound inequality is where these two graphs intersect, where they are the same. Okay. So if I picked this graph up and put it on top of this one, where would they be the same? Well, between which two numbers? Between 2 and 5, right? Here's the graph right here of our intersection. Does everyone see that? It's where they're the exact same. Are they the same all less than 2? No. Are they the same all greater than 5? No. But they're the same between 2 and 5. Does that make sense? So this is what my graph down here looks like of my and compound inequalities. It's the overlap, the intersection of the two graphs of the two inequalities. Does that make sense? And right here, this is two ways you can see an and compound inequality. You can see it with the two inequalities with and written in between them, or you can see it written like that. You'll see it written like that quite a bit. Okay? As you can see on this first part right here, they flipped the inequality symbol and put x on the right-hand side. So it's saying 2 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than 5. So they just combine those by saying 2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 5 as well. Okay? So anytime you see it written like this in the box, that's always an and compound inequality. The or will never be written like that. Okay? Are there any questions about my and compound inequalities? Remember, a solution has to fit both conditions. Okay? So, for this example, would 0 be a solution? No. 0 is less than 5, but 0 is not greater than or equal to 2, is it? No. It's got to fit both of them at the exact same time. Is 10 a solution? No. No. 10 is greater than or equal to 2, but it's not less than 5, is it? It's got to fit both conditions. Is 3 a solution? Yeah. 3 is greater than or equal to 2, and it's less than 5, so I know it's a solution of my compound inequality. It also falls in the shaded region of my graph. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, that's and compound inequalities. Let's talk about or now. The graph of a compound inequality with or is what we call the union of the graphs of the inequalities. So and was the intersection, or is the union of the graphs of the inequality. The graph shows numbers that are solutions of either inequality. So for my or compound inequalities, it just has to fit one of my conditions. It does not have to fit both of them for it to be a solution. Does that make sense? It's got to be a solution of y is less than or equal to negative 2 in this case, or y is greater than 1. As long as it fits one of those, it's a solution of my whole compound inequality. Okay? So once again, they graphed them individually. Y is less than or equal to negative 2. Closed circle on negative 2, shaded to the left. Does everyone agree with that? Okay. Y is greater than 1. Open circle on 1, shaded to the right. Everyone agree with that? Okay. The union of the two graphs is just graphing them on the same number line. Okay? So you just put the first graph on there, put the second graph on there. Here's your graph of your or compound inequality. Does that make sense? And like I said earlier, or will never be written like this over here. It'll always be written with your two inequalities and the word or between them. It'll always, always, always be written like that. Okay? So in this case, would 0 be a solution? No, because 0 is not less than or equal to negative 2. It is not greater than 1. It doesn't fit either condition, so it's not a solution. Would negative 10 be a solution?
Yes.
Yeah, which condition does it meet?
Y is less than negative 2.
Y is less than or equal to negative 2, right? Negative 10 is less than or equal to negative 2. We don't even have to worry about y is greater than 1 at that point because it fits one of my conditions. Would 100 be a solution? Yeah, because 100 is greater than 1. If it fits one of my conditions, that means it's a solution. Questions about that? So and, it's got to meet both conditions at the same time, or it's just got to meet one or the other. Questions on that? Okay. Example 1, writing and graphing compound inequalities. Write each sentence as an inequality, graph each inequality. So we first have to write the inequality, then we got to graph it. A number x is greater than negative 8 and less than or equal to 4. A number x is greater than negative 8 and less than or equal to 4. Someone help me out here, raise your hand. How would I write this inequality?
X then the greater than symbol. Then write negative 8. And then
No, I agree with that so far.
and then write that
And
and then write X less than or equal to 4.
there you go. Everyone agree with that? A number x is greater than negative 8. X is greater than negative 8. And, there's our and right there, so I bring my and down. We're still talking about the same number x is also less than or equal to 4. So x is less than or equal to 4. You do have to have the x in both spots if you are writing it like this. Okay? Can anyone raise your hand and help me write it a different way?
Negative 8 is less than X. And then, which is, and then X is less than or equal to 4.
There you go. Just like we saw it on the previous slide, right? We can put our x in the middle. And we always write it from left to right with the smallest number coming first, the bigger number coming last, with x in the middle. Does that make sense? So your arrows should always be pointing to the left when we're writing it like this. Okay? So negative 8 is less than x is less than or equal to 4. Questions on writing it either of those ways? If this last way confuses you, just leave it written like that. That's perfectly fine. Okay? What do we need to do now with it? Graph it. I went ahead and made my graph go up by 2's. Do I have an open or closed dot at -8? Well, actually, let me ask this. What are my 2 endpoints? Where my 2 circles are going to go? What 2 numbers? -8 and 4. Because those are the 2 numbers that are a part of my inequality, right? So those are where my 2 circles are going to go. Is it going to be an open or closed circle at -8? Open. There's no line underneath the symbol between x and -8, is there? So open circle on -8. Open or closed circle on 4?
Closed.
Closed. There's a line underneath my symbol between x and 4. Everyone got that? Any confusion on where I put my 2 circles and whether they were open or closed? Okay. It says x is greater than -8. So would I be shading to the left or right of -8 in that case? To the right. X is less than or equal to 4. Would that be to the left or right of 4? Left. For an and compound inequality, is it the intersection of the 2 graphs where they overlap, or the union of the 2 graphs where I just put them on the same graph? Do what?
They overlap.
Where they overlap, where they intersect. So where would my shading be here?
In the middle of the 2 spots.
Yeah, between the 2 circles. Because this one's shading this way, this one's shading this way. Where they're the same is right between my 2 circles. There's my graph. Any questions on that? Any confusion at all? Most of the time, this is always how your and compound inequalities graphs will look. Most of the time. There are rare instances where it looks a little different, but I don't think you'll see any like that on your assignment. So most of the time, you'll just shade between the 2 points. Okay? Questions on letter A? Can I erase and move to B?
Yes.
Letter B. A number y is at most 0 or at least 2. It's got some of those weird phrases we've seen before. A number y is at most 0 or at least 2. Can someone raise your hand? Help me out besides DeMonte. Yeah.
So X.
Not x.
Oh. Oh, Y.
Y, yeah.
Is less than or equal to 0. And then greater than or equal to 2.
What am I missing?
4.
There we go. Does everyone agree with that? Yeah. A number y is at most 0. If it's at most 0, can it be greater than 0? No, so it's got to be less than or equal to. Bring your or down. Still talking about the same number y, so I'm still using y. At least 2. If it's at least 2, can it be less than 2? No, so it's got to be greater than or equal to 2. And there's my only way to write it right there. Any questions on that? We good? Let's graph it. Oops. Okay. What numbers are my 2 circles going on here? 0 and 2, because those are the 2 numbers that are a part of my compound inequality. Everyone understands that? Okay, open or closed dot on 0?
Closed.
Closed. It's got that line underneath it. It's or equal to, 0 is included in the solution. Open or closed dot on 2? Closed. Same thing, it's got the line under it. This is an or compound inequality, so it's the union of the two graphs. I'm just graphing them both on the same number line, correct? So if y is less than or equal to 0, am I shading to the left or right of 0? Left. Y is greater than or equal to 2, am I shading to the left or right of 2? Right. Once again, most of the time, this is how your or compound inequalities will be graphed, from your 2 points out. Most of the time. Once again, there are some rare occurrences where it will look a little different, but like I said, I don't think you'll see any of those on your assignment. Okay? Questions about example 1, A or B here? How are we feeling about this so far? Great. Good. I like to hear that. Can I move on? Now let's actually solve some inequalities. Solve each inequality, graph each solution. So letter A, I've got negative 4 is less than x minus 2 is less than 3. First off, is this an and or an or compound inequality? How do I know that? It doesn't have the word or, yeah. And just by the way it's written, right? I've got x in the very middle of 2 inequality symbols, right? That's how I can identify it as and. So both of these on A and B are both and compound inequalities. Everyone agree with that? Now there's 2 ways I can approach this. If I wanted to, I could split this up into my 2 inequalities with the word and between them. That's how this is how this would look. Negative 4 is less than x minus 2. And x minus 2 is less than 3. X minus 2 just goes with both sides of the and. You could split it up like that and then solve each one of these individually. Does that make sense? I don't like to do it that way. Can I show you how I like to do it? And then if someone wants to see it like this, I can show you this way as well. Everyone good with my way? My goal is still to get x by itself. In this case, I want x by itself in the middle of the inequality. As of right now, is it by itself?
No.
What's with it?
Negative.
The 2. And what's happening between the x and the 2?
Minus.
Subtraction. Inverse of subtraction, addition. So I can add 2 in the middle, and it'll eliminate my 2. In this case, whatever I do in the middle of my inequality, I have to do to the left as well as to the right. Does that make sense? Any confusion on that? Okay, what's negative 4 plus 2?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. I'm left with x in the middle. What's 3 plus 2?
5.
5. Do my inequality symbols flip or stay the same in this case?
Stay the same.
Stay the same. Once again, I only flip if I multiply or divide, in this case, all 3 sides by a negative number. If I add, subtract, multiply or divide by a positive, it all stays the same. Is x now by itself in the middle? Yeah. So here's my solution. Everyone okay with that method, or does someone want to see it the other way? You okay with that one? I think it's a lot easier. It's less writing to do. I think it's pretty straightforward. Now I need to graph it. Bless you. Bless you. Okay, where are my 2 circles going? What 2 numbers?
5 and negative 2.
5 and negative 2. On negative 2, is it open or closed?
Open.
Open. There's no line underneath the symbol between x and negative 2. Open or closed dot on 5? Open. Once again, there's no line underneath the symbol between x and 5. Okay, reading it from the variable standpoint, x is greater than negative 2. Would that be to the left or right of negative 2?
Left.
If x is greater than negative 2,
To the right.
to the right. Everyone agree with that? And x is less than 5. Would that be to the left or right of 5? Left. So where's the overlap of the two graphs? In the middle, between the two dots. Questions on A? We okay with that? Okay. Letter B. Let's solve it the exact same way we solved letter A. I just have a few more steps here on solving for x. What would be my first step to get x by itself in the middle? Subtract 1. Whatever I do to the middle,
You gotta do to all sides.
got to do to all sides. So I got to do it to the left as well as to the right. What's negative 3 minus 1?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. I have negative 2x left in the middle. And 9 minus 1.
8.
8. Inequality symbols, flip or stay?
Stay.
Stay. We okay with that first step? Am I moving too fast for anybody? I can slow down if I need to. Okay, what's my next step to get x by itself?
Divide by negative 2.
Divide by negative 2. X is being multiplied by negative 2, so I'm going to divide by it to cancel it out.
So we can flip all the signs.
We're getting there. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2 on the left and on the right. Negative 4 divided by negative 2. 2. Got x in the middle. 8 divided by negative 2.
Negative 4.
Negative 4. And Steve, what would I have to do here?
Flip all the signs.
Yeah, I got to flip all the signs. Because I divided by a negative all the way around, I've got to flip all my inequality symbols. Everyone okay with that? Earlier, right here, on letter A, what did I say with the smallest number, the biggest number? Where does each number go?
The biggest number always is on the right.
Biggest number's on the right,
Always on the left.
smallest number's on the left. Is that the case here?
No.
No. So I got to flip it all. Okay? I'm going to write negative 4 first. I've got to keep the same symbol between x and negative 4. So it's going to have a bar under it. Does everyone see that? Is it going to be pointing at negative 4 or is the alligator going to eat negative 4?
Away.
Pointing at negative 4. Keep that bar under it. I've got x in the middle still. I've got 2 on the right now because it's the bigger symbol. Once again, I've got to keep the same symbol between x and 2. So is the symbol pointing at x or is the alligator eating x?
Pointing at X.
Pointing at x. There's no bar under that one. So here would be my solution. If you left it like this, I probably would not count it wrong, because that's still true, still a true statement. Just make sure you graph it correctly. Okay? I always like to do smaller number first, variable in the middle, bigger number last. Okay? Questions on how I got that? Okay, now let's graph it. Everyone okay if I erase the graph of A? Open or close dot on negative 4?
Close.
Closed. Open or close dot on 2?
Open.
Open. Where am I shading?
In the middle. Negative.
In the middle of the 2 points. Questions on letter B? How are you feeling about solving and compound inequalities? Great, great. Good. Can I move on to or?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one example here. Solve 3y minus 5 is less than negative 8. Or 2y minus 1 is greater than 5. Then graph the solution. I think these are pretty simple as well. All we have to do is solve each inequality individually and keep the word or between it as you go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So for my first inequality, what's my first step to get y by itself?
Add 5 to both sides.
Add 5 to both sides. So am I adding 5 over here at this inequality? No, because there are two separate inequalities just put together by the word or. Some people have made that mistake in the past. They try to add 5 on every side of all my inequalities. That's not the case. We're going to do something completely different over here on this inequality. Okay? So I've got 3y on the left, negative 8 plus 5. Negative 8 plus 5. Negative 3. Did my inequality symbol flip or stay? Stayed. Bring your word or down. What's my first step on this second inequality to get y by itself?
Add 1 on both sides.
Add 1 on both sides. We've got 2y on the left. 5 plus 1?
6.
6. Inequality symbol flip or stay?
Stay.
Stay. Does everyone see that? Each step we're doing on the individual inequalities just happens to that inequality. Okay? It doesn't happen to both inequalities. Okay, first inequality again. What's my next step to get y by itself? Divide by 3 on both sides. Got y on the left. Negative 3 divided by 3. Negative 1. Symbol flip or stay?
Stay.
Stay. Bring your word or down. Am I moving too fast? Okay, what's my next step on my next inequality?
Divide by 2 on both sides.
Divide by 2 on both sides. We got y on the left, 6 divided by 2.
3.
3 on the right. Symbol flip or stay?
Stay.
Stay. Is y now by itself on one side on both inequalities?
Yes.
Yeah, so here's my answer. Y is less than negative 1 or y is greater than 3. So you could do it the way we did it, where you solve them both all at the same time. Or you could work one all the way down, work the other all the way down, make sure you keep the word or between it. Okay? It doesn't matter which way you do it. Now let's graph it. Open or close dot on negative 1.
Okay.
Open. Open or close dot on 3.
Open.
Open. How am I shading here? Yeah, from the points outward. Right? Questions on example 3? Any questions about example 3? Any questions on any of the notes we just covered? Are we feeling pretty good about and compound inequalities? Feeling pretty good about or compound inequalities?
Yes.
Writing them, graphing them, solving them, all the things. We all okay with them? Okay. Here's our assignment. Page 89, numbers 4 through 20 evens. 4 through 20 evens. It's like 9 problems, I think. Not bad. This will be due Wednesday. What's today? I gotta update my calendar. Today's the 3rd, so the 5th.
It's like 5th?
It's due the 5th. Today's the 3rd. Due Wednesday, October 5th on Canvas. Make sure you get the correct heading on your paper. Name, date, period, assignment, upper right-hand corner. Do we have any questions about my notes before I end the recording?
Again.
Okay.